welcome to Agenda 2030. I am Toyin Nkamiang John. Once again, we will on today's episode be bringing to you interesting reports from happenings relating to the implementation of the SDGs in Nigeria. Do stay with us.
Agenda 2030. As a successor framework for the Millennium Development Goals, the global community rolled out a bigger, deeper, and more encompassing framework called the Sustainable Development Goals, designed to transform our world, lift the poor out of poverty, as well as ensure inclusive and healthy society. On Agenda 2030, we take you on a media trip to the global destination of the future we want. With everyone on board, we focus on the people and their struggle, the civil society and their agitations, the government and her development effort, the Global Development Agenda, its 17 goals and 169 targets. We bring you all the deliberations, insightful conversations and high-level partnerships on the road to global destination. Agenda 2030, showing on this channel. Agenda 2030, leaving no one behind.
As part of its efforts to further entrench the integration of the Sustainable Development Goals at the national and sub-national level, the Office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Sustainable Development Goals has carried out a capacity-building training for key implementing officials of the SDGs. The training retreat, which was held in Abuja for focal persons from state and desk officers from the ministries, departments and agencies at the federal level, was designed to address some of the capacity gaps to ensure successful implementation of the SDGs in Nigeria.
Speaking at the opening ceremony of a two-day training retreat on capacity imperatives for implementing SDGs in Nigeria, the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Sustainable Development Goals, Princess Adejoke Orelokpe Adefulire, reiterated the importance of reliable data collation for the effective implementation of the SDGs. The presidential aide said the retreat organized to bring together key stakeholders driving the implementation of the SDGs at the national, state and local levels was to enable the participants understand the capacity requirements for SDGs implementation.
In order to meet up with the resolution of the United Nations for follow-up and reporting on SDGs, we must strengthen our statistical capacity, that is, our capacity to collect quality and accurate data, timely and reliable data, and to analyze such collated data and interpret them to inform policy decisions. Deliberate efforts must be made to ensure programming and budgeting process are connected with key performance indicators and can be measured at the end of every budget year.
Orelokpe Adefulire, who commended the National Bureau of Statistics (NBS) and the UNDP for collaborating with the Office of the SDGs on data mapping and determination of 126 baseline SDGs indicators to benchmark progress on SDGs. She urged state governments to put in place a robust and comprehensive statistical information system for monitoring progress on SDGs implementation. She said the federal government was in the process of ensuring that state governments integrate the SDGs into their short, medium and long-term development plans.
There is a monitoring and evaluation framework. In everything there must be for evaluation to benchmark, to monitor if we are making progress or not. So there is M&E components, strategically positioned to monitor, and that's why when you see in 2017 the baseline survey was carried out to benchmark progress. That this is where we are. In 5 years, this is where we want to be. In 10 years, where this want to. In 15 years, when the program is going to come to an end, this is where we should be. And if you don't have an MIE, which is monitoring and evaluation, we can determine whether we are making progress or not.
The economic advisor at the United Nations Development Programme (UNDP) for Nigeria and ECOWAS, Ojijo Odiambo, who spoke on mainstreaming and acceleration of the SDGs in relation to the Africa 2063 agenda, said the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development already contains critical elements of Africa's 2063 agenda.
The Africa's Agenda 2063 largely informed the SDGs. So the SDGs already contain critical elements of Africa's Agenda 2063. There's a high degree of convergence. By some estimations, is around 80% convergence between Agenda 2030 and Agenda 2063. So by moving towards achieving Agenda 2030, which is the SDGs, we are already achieving 80% of Africa's Agenda 2063. However, where there is no convergence and which areas are uniquely applicable to the African continent, it's upon the African nation states, Nigeria included, to have in place policies and programs that will achieve this. Beyond that, there are regional projects that the heads of state and government from Africa region have agreed to, and this will also facilitate not just the integration of the continent but also overall development of the region.
On mainstreaming the SDGs into the budget to ensure sustained recovery and growth of the Nigerian economy, the Director Budget Monitoring and Evaluation at the Ministry of Budget and National Planning, Bath Fese, said the strategies of the ministries have to be informed by the plans of the SDGs.
Owning the SDG cannot be done on its own. The SDGs have to be mainstreamed into the National Development Plan. Currently, the plan is the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, and that already is what is happening, because the SDGs have already been mainstreamed into the SDG, into the ERGP. As for whether the annual budget is enough to implement the targets of the SDGs, yeah, why not? To the extent that the annual budget fully implements the provisions on the targets of the ERGP, to that extent will the annual budget be enough to achieve the goals and targets of the SDGs.
Recently, the government of Switzerland returned funds reportedly looted by late former head of state, General Sani Abacha, to the Nigerian government. The federal government has since indicated its intention to disburse the funds among the poorest of the poor in its avowed commitment to continue to alleviate their plight by dispersing solace and succor. Greeted with criticism, the special advisor to the President on National Social Investment Program, Mrs. Mariam Ways, spoke with Agenda 2030 team on the rationale for the decision.
We're giving grants to poor people, to the extent that that is what they mean, to the poorest people. But let's go back a little bit in history. You know, before this administration, about 700 million had been returned, and it was unaccounted for. So when this judgment was to be made on how this money should be returned to Nigeria, there were a lot of arguments. Even the civil society in Switzerland were campaigning that this money shouldn't be returned to Nigeria. The judge put a clause that the World Bank must monitor disbursements. It's there in the Swiss judgment. They didn't consult Nigeria, and they didn't consult the World Bank. He just felt that there will be credibility if the World Bank monitors. So here we are faced with a situation where we cannot disburse that money unless World Bank is involved. So we sat down with World Bank. World Bank said, who is going to pay us to set up structures for monitoring? There's no provision for that. And it's not cheap. So they said, but we have a number of projects in Nigeria that we have put money in. So we already have monitoring structures for disbursement. So we can give you the list. If you select that this money should go to any of these projects, then we don't mind. Otherwise, you may need to go back and appeal so that they remove our name. Because we're not going to commit to anything that is going to have expenses that we don't know who will pay. Especially in a country as large as Nigeria, monitoring is not going to be cheap. You understand? So of all the different programs that the World Bank has lent money to, government in its leadership said, okay, you have set up transparent programs and you're creating a list of the poorest Nigerians. We can see how payments are being made. This money was taken from Nigeria. Let's give it to Nigerian people. So out of it all, even in our 4 programs, the World Bank doesn't have an interest in any, only the cash program, only the cash transfer. They've given us IDA credits of $500 million. So it was one of them on the list. But you know, World Bank is not involved in infrastructure. I've heard, why not infrastructure? World Bank says, I'm not there. So why should I set up monitoring structures? Are you going to pay me? They are in the Northeast. Government in its wisdom said, it's a program we want to touch every part of this country. And it is the cash transfer program that is going around the entire country. So let's put it in the cash transfer program. And let's follow the method you've been following. In fact, World Bank has 2 other programs, YESO and CSDP, the Community Service Development Project. It was under finance before. Once we started working, they relocated it to our office. Now they're under us. Because they're very happy and they can see what we're doing. You understand? They can track what we're doing. And we're ensuring that only the poorest. And we're trying to depoliticize the process. We're trying to ensure that the usual suspects, you know, culture, faith, all of those things don't impact. We just go to the community and the community determines. You understand? So a lot of the politicians say, we don't know what's happening. It's not true. You're not doing it. But they don't go to their communities, that's why. We're not giving the details of the recipients in the sense that there's data confidentiality and some people won't want their details out there. But we can share the numbers of the community facilitators that I said we've trained, who go to meet them. They will lead you to these people. They will show you they're not ghosts. They will show you where they are. Or if on payday you want to go, you will see them being paid. But the data that we're compiling, that we have the National Social Register, which is a combination of all the states, and every state has access to its own data. It is available only to an extent for philanthropists, organization, donor partners, individuals who say, everybody over 70, I want to pay, I want to give them a stipend. If you meet our protocols, we've designed protocols, then everybody over 70 will get that money. You can be rest assured that they will get that money because we pay them directly. We don't go through any middleman. You understand? So that's how come the money, I've explained the process that we go through. It's tedious, but it's critical for us that we know, it's stimulating financial inclusion. Even Empower, a lot of them opened accounts because of Empower. So we're bringing people into the formal economy. All our cooks have to open accounts, And with our cash transfer, they're a little more distant. They're gradually being brought into the economy themselves. And beyond that, everybody that has a BVN is going to have a NIN number. It's already started, you know that. So everybody is getting a national identity number. And those people never registered at birth, never registered their marriages, never registered death.
Menstruation is one of the most important changes occurring among girls during adolescent years. Although menstruation is a natural process, it is linked with several misconceptions and practices which mostly result in discrimination and isolation of the girl child. We bring you a report of how a youth group, the Youth for Peace and Entrepreneurship Initiative, YOPE, is leading a campaign for an improved reproductive health education while attempting to address the challenges by reaching out to school girls through their Why Right project themed No Girl Left Behind.
According to a UNICEF report, 1 out of every 10 African schoolgirls skips school or drop out entirely due to lack of menstrual products and access to proper sanitation. This critical unavailability of sanitary products, especially in the rural areas, is a major barrier to education for girls of school-going age. Figures also report that the girl child is discriminated against even in the field of higher education. At least 40% of girls are not allowed to pursue higher studies due to conservative familial ideologies surrounding reproductive and menstrual health. The inability to effectively manage menstrual and reproductive health contributes largely to the decline in girl-child education. Perception and appropriate hygiene practices of adolescent girls in Nigeria towards menstruation is closely linked with their level of knowledge and beliefs. The global demand for greater understanding of the challenges menstruating schoolgirls face and the associated potential risks and consequences are growing. With respect to reported challenging menstrual hygiene practices, the Executive Director of Youth for Peace and Entrepreneurship Initiative, YOPE, Higariva Dorcas, has been leading a campaign on the need for targeted, systematic information to schoolgirls in Nigeria through the Y Rights Project geared towards better knowledge and practice of menstrual hygiene. The drive is in line with Goals 3, 4, and 5 of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which advocates for good health and well-being, access to quality education, and gender equality.
Period is a natural healthy phenomenon for every woman, and every girl will come to go through it. So it's important that they are able to embrace it. They should be able to speak about it. They should be able to have the basic information that they need about their period so that they can menstruate with pride. And then looking at the Sustainable Development Goals, SDG, No Child Left Behind, we are also working in hand with these goals for gender equality. Most of the time you find out that girls during their primary school, most of the girls cannot transit to secondary school. That is because at that period, 9 to 12, they've already started seeing their periods. And when they don't have products to use, they tend to just withdraw from school. So we are looking at how we can retain girls in schools. A whole lot of state governments, in the north especially, are still struggling with keeping girls in school.
Highlighting menstrual education as a vital aspect of health education, Dorcas said it is important to help girls stay in school during their period by providing them with alternative and sustainable means of care that will be readily available, accessible, and affordable, one of which is the disposable sanitary towel.
So we are coming out with a product that will make sure that every girl can have access to affordable, very accessible and available sanitary towels to use. And we're talking about reusable sanitary pads where that can be easily produced, can be locally produced.
As Egaira noted, education is one of the most critical areas of empowerment for women. It is also an area that clearly exposes major discrimination women suffer. Among out-of-school children, there are twice as many girls as boys, and amongst uneducated adults, there are twice as many women as men.
When some Nigerian celebrities were made SDGs ambassadors by the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Sustainable Development Goals, Princess Adejoke Orilokwe Adefulire, she said it was based on their capability of communicating effectively the messages of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The ambassadors were tasked with the responsibility of generating momentum and raising awareness for the SDGs in Nigeria, as well as mobilize critical mass participation needed for the success of the goals. One of the celebrity ambassadors is actor and television personality Teju Babyface Oyelaki, who was recently in the office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President on SDGs, where he gave an insight into his Teju Babyface Mentorship Academy and Mentorship Foundation Africa, designed to champion the cause of the SDGs. Here's a report.
With his passion well connected to the spirit of Goal 4, centered on attainment of quality education, and Goal 8 for the provision of decent work and economic growth of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, Nigerian entertainer and SDGs ambassador Teju Babyface is embarking on a mentorship program with strong roots in equipping the youth with sound quality education, ultimately targeted at empowering them economically. To this end, the entertainer is entering into a strategic partnership with the Office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President on SDGs. Tajo Babyface gave insight into the shape and objectives of the mentorship program when he paid a visit to the office in Abuja recently. Specifically, he noted that the program will focus on training final year students on talent identification and management, amongst other courses. An act geared towards creating a balance between quality education and decent work.
We figured that the first place we had to go if we wanted to start to have impact were the universities. As students are coming out, the final year students of a few key universities in the key zones of Nigeria, which is at the north, the east, and the west, as it were. Our first project is to go to those universities once a year and speak and train for 2 days the final year students coming out.
The initiative was well applauded by the head of sectors in the Office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President on SDGs, pharmacist Yahaya Hamza, who also highlighted the envisaged impact the program will have on the overall effort to achieve the SDGs in Nigeria.
You see, it is one thing to bestow honor on someone. It is another thing for the person giving the honor to value that honor and try to make a meaning out of it. And this is where what you have done is pioneering. And as an office, I want to assure you that you have ready partners who readily complement whatever efforts you want to make to contribute to the achievement of the SDGs in Nigeria.
Special Assistant on Sectors and Partnership in the Office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President on SDGs, Rose Kefas, assured of the willingness of the office to support and partner all worthy initiatives targeted at attaining the SDGs.
So we're working on the workshop where we're coming with UN partners to train you guys on about campaigning on the SDGs. So it's just beyond posting also, but we want people to understand the development agenda.
In their resolve to pursue the attainment of Goal 4 of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which seeks to achieve quality education through increased level of basic literacy among children and adults in rural and suburban areas. The Whole Life Initiative for Development in Africa, Wide Africa, recently embarked on a book donation project for school libraries in Abuja. The project kicked off with donations to Calvary Love Academy, Jikwe, where the Postgraduate Studies Director of City College of Education Abuja, Mr. Philip Omonodo, emphasized the need to revive the reading culture in Nigerian schools in order to increase the level of basic literacy among children in the rural and suburban areas, as well as ensure improved performance rate of students in external examinations. The founder and executive director of the organization, Chimerema Hope Uluku, in her remarks, reiterated the need to promote reading culture among students and equip them with good communication skills. She also re-emphasized the need to ensure that students with low-income earning parents have access to quality educational resources, promotes the quality of teaching in rural and suburban areas, and to combat the rising menace of miracle centers in the area. Remember, you can always watch this program and other episodes by subscribing to our YouTube channels on youtube.com/FreshNewsTV and youtube.com/Agenda2030TV. You can also watch the program live on Facebook. Log on to www.facebook.com/FreshNewsNG and www.facebook.com/Agenda2030TV. Follow us on all our social media platforms at Agenda2030TV on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Remember to drop your comments and share with your contacts. Do use the hashtag Agenda2030 and hashtag Agenda2030TV. And that has been the size of our program this week. Do keep a date with us next week as we bring you another refreshing episode. I am Toyin Nkamian John. Thank you for staying with us.